Okay, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about the world's smallest island nation, a tiny speck in the Pacific you've probably never even heard of. But this little island, Nauru, is right at the heart of a multi-trillion-dollar fight that could decide the fate of our planet's last untouched wilderness. And believe it or not, it all starts with this: a watermelon. On a supermarket shelf in Nauru, selling for 61 Australian dollars. That's 37 US dollars. This ridiculously expensive piece of fruit, it isn't just a weird fact. It is the key that unlocks an insane story of unbelievable wealth, total ruin, and a massive gamble at the bottom of the ocean. So to understand that watermelon, you have to understand Nauru. We're talking about an island smaller than most international airports, just floating out there, isolated in the middle of the Pacific. And its history, wow. It's a tragic lesson in the boom and bust of natural resources, a story that is scarily close to repeating itself in a brand new way. So first up, let's rewind to the first tragedy. This is the story of how Nauru went from being the wealthiest country on Earth per capita to one of the most devastated. Picture this. For millions of years, this island was the only rest stop for seabirds for hundreds and hundreds of miles. Their droppings just piled up, layer after layer, until time and chemistry turned them into actual mountains of pure, high-grade phosphate, a super fertilizer the world was desperate to get its hands on. Nauru was literally sitting on a mountain of treasure, and it all happened so fast. In the 1920s, colonial powers started stripping the island bare. By 1968, Nauru gets its independence, takes control of the mines, and boom, they become fabulously rich. We're talking their own airline, luxury cars, the works. But by the 90s, the mountain was gone. The phosphate ran out, and the country went completely broke. And this is what was left behind. The mining scraped away the entire inside of the island, leaving this barren, jagged moonscape. 80% of the country was rendered totally useless, just a dismal, ghastly tract of land. The human impact was absolutely devastating. With no land left to farm, Nauruans had to rely on expensive, imported, processed food. The result? A public health catastrophe. We're talking one of the highest obesity rates on the planet, with over 70% of the population considered obese, and a staggering 1 in 4 adults suffering from diabetes. With the money gone, Nauru got desperate. I mean, really desperate. It tried anything to make a buck. It became a tax haven for the Russian mob, laundering billions. It sold Nauruan passports for cash. And most controversially, it took money from Australia to host a detention center for asylum seekers. And look, this wasn't just some line item in a national budget. This was a human crisis. People fleeing persecution were locked up for years in these grim prison-like conditions. As one former detainee, Bethlehem Chebubu, said, just being cut off from your family was a form of torture. This was the real cost of Nauru's desperation. Which brings us to today. Having literally destroyed its land, Nauru is now turning to a brand new, completely untapped frontier for its next economic miracle: the deep ocean floor. 5 kilometers under the waves, in a part of the Pacific called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone. The seabed is just littered with these things. Polymetallic nodules. They're basically lumpy, potato-sized rocks that have been slowly growing layer by layer over millions of years. And they are packed with the metals our modern world is starving for. So enter the Metals Company, or TMC. It's a Canadian firm that wants to be the first in the world to mine these things commercially. But to do that in international waters, you need a country to sponsor you. So they partnered with Nauru, a nation desperate for a new source of income. It's a deal that gives TMC access and Nauru a potential lifeline. But this partnership immediately raises a huge red flag, a concept critics call a sponsorship of convenience. The fear is that a massive corporation is teaming up with a tiny, impoverished nation precisely because Nauru doesn't have the resources to actually regulate a multi-billion-dollar deep-sea mining operation. So is this a genuine partnership, or is it just exploiting a loophole in international law? And this isn't just about one company and one island. No way. The stakes here are global. It's pitting the promise of a green energy future against the potential peril of destroying the planet's last great wilderness. So, why is this such a big deal? Money. The value of the metals in just this one zone of the Pacific is estimated to be as high as $16 trillion. That's a 16 with 12 zeros. It is an almost unimaginable prize just waiting at the bottom of the sea. And these nodules, they're essentially a battery in a rock. They've got high concentrations of cobalt, nickel, copper, and manganese, the exact metals we need in huge quantities for electric vehicle batteries, for wind turbines, for the entire green energy transition. The demand is about to explode. And this creates the ultimate dilemma. The pro-mining argument goes like this. Getting these metals from the ocean floor is way better than the alternative, destroying rainforests in places like Indonesia for the exact same stuff. It's a choice between two evils. But the opponents argue that we're about to bulldoze the last pristine ecosystem on the planet, a place that's home to potentially thousands of species we haven't even discovered yet. The opposition from the scientific community is fierce. The legendary oceanographer Dr. Sylvia Earle, well, she put it bluntly. She said the whole idea is, quote, one of the stupidest ideas I've ever imagined. The fear isn't just about the machines themselves. It's about the plumes. The mining process is going to kick up these giant clouds of sediment that could drift for thousands of kilometers, basically smothering and suffocating fragile, slow-growing life. It could also disrupt the deep ocean's crucial role as the world's largest carbon sink, which would be bad, very bad. And this entire debate just got supercharged by a legal maneuver that started a ticking clock, forcing the world into a corner, and maybe, just maybe, kicking off a chaotic gold rush to the bottom of the sea. Here's how the clock started. In 2021, Nauru triggered this legal loophole called the 2-year rule. It forced the International Seabed Authority, that's the UN body in charge of the seabed, to finalize a complete mining code within 2 years. Well, that deadline has passed, and the rule states the ISA must now consider mining applications, even if the environmental regulations aren't finished. The starting gun has been fired, and other small island nations are watching this with alarm. The president of Palau sees a disturbing pattern, saying Pacific nations are once again at the mercy of powerful external forces, in a way that feels just like the colonial exploitation of the past. For them, history is repeating itself. So we're left with this massive, unresolved question. The green transition demands a colossal amount of new metals. The deep ocean has them in abundance. But is opening up this last mysterious frontier a price we are willing to pay for a cleaner future on land? That's the $16 trillion question.